I well remember the day Qforce came out. I've basically played every Ratchet and Clank game up until then, and my brother didn't want to buy this game. And I couldn't understand why, because of course he will play it, it's Ratchet and Clank. I mean, it was obvious that this game was a little different than most games up until that point, but only 20 euros. Well, what ended up happening is that my brother was so stubborn that after years he still said that he would not play the game only if I would pay him. Classic brotherly bullshit. So he never played it. Now the question is, why? Because he certainly wasn't the only one. Ratchet and Clank Qforce player base was so small that my cousin and I would frequently run into the same online players while searching for a game. And right now, 13 years later, there is no online game anymore. I've spent nights and days trying to find an online game, but no player ever showed up. There was this magical night where my cousin and I would go in and try to fight each other in challenge runs, and there were actually 2 online players. Oh my, this could very well be the first Qforce match in, 7 years? Against a player that is not my cousin. But the match certainly wasn't fun. These players stuck around from time to time and know every single detail they can abuse to win. The match was so one-sided and we got utterly stomped on. The fact that we actually could play 2v2 FFA was cool, but the skill level was insane. And you know what? After a short game, those players spent all night trying to message us and inviting us for some more, since there's literally no one else online on this game. Maybe this was the reason why the game wasn't so popular. If the very few people you keep on matching with will crush you game after game, the sense of progression is gone and you just get stomped on. And to be honest, I really think that is unfortunate. Because this game wasn't perfect, nowhere close to be honest, but it was so good in 1v1s or 2v2s. Let's take a look at Qforce's prime time. Alright, so this is how the multiplayer works. Both players have a base with 2 entrances and 6 generators. You win if all 6 generators of your opponent are defeated. There are 3 phases: Recon, Squad and Assault. In the Recon phase, players set out into the world to take over nodes. The more nodes you own, the more bolts you will get over time, and with every new node taken you gain a weapon. Node 1 is always the hardest to get to, but it's the only node that actually gives you a heavy weapon, like the Warmonger or the Plasma Bomb Launcher, to deal the most damage. Of course, you can run into the other player and engage in combat. Whoever wins gains bolts from the opponent, and the defeated player has to wait 5 seconds, which is precious time. That also means that you can plan an ambush while the other player is taking over a node. Kill him and take the node for yourself. Battle of the Nodes. The enemy base cannot be entered yet, just like in the 1-minute squad phase. Here, nodes can no longer be captured but can still be weakened. Sometimes it's best to use this time to already weaken some of the nodes that the opposing player has, or collect some of the bolt boxes on the map for extra money. But the squad phase is here to give you time to plan an attack or set up defenses. You can set up barricades and turrets of any kind. You can also prepare troops to send to the enemy base in the next phase, or upgrade yourself, the base or troops. You can get more health, more ammo, regen, more barricades, build pads, or better versions of troops. After that, the assault phase, or the base invasion phase, is triggered, and players both get an attempt to attack or defend. And this can get really tense, because there are so many factors to consider. Are you going all in on your attack? But what if your opponent also does that? Did he send troops? You don't want them to defeat your defenses which you just bought. But maybe it is worth it if you put in a certain amount of pressure on your enemy. If you get totally stuck, there is a panic button for both players to use a single time in the entire match. This locks down the base, hides the generators and teleports the enemy player back to their base if they were inside yours. This gives you just an extra failsafe to potentially gain more bolts, clean up your mistake, or have a new chance. So sometimes it could be beneficial to put enough pressure on your opponent that he actually uses the panic button, but you actually set up for more rounds to come. Especially if you control more nodes than your opponent, you can spend more money on extra attacks and more defenses. If all troops are dealt with and no player is currently in the hostile base, a new round starts and the recon phase is initiated again. Most games finish in 3 or 4 rounds, but if a game didn't conclude after 6 rounds, a final phase starts, where it's basically all-out warfare until one player wins. Man, these are all such good ideas. And the strategies! Oh man, the strategies! Because let's look at the weapons first. Every weapon has its strengths and weaknesses. For example, the cryo shot is great against Grungoid turrets that are defending nodes. They are easily one-shot. But the cryo shot is not great against barriers. It takes so long. But that is exactly where the Pyroblaster excels at. It's great at taking out enemies and barriers at short distance, but lacks in range. Obviously, Mr. Zircon, the Thunder Smack and Doppelgangers are always great for support damage, and the Sonic Eruptor is kind of a jack of all trades. It does excel in more shorter range combat, and it's great if you want to hit more enemies with the same blast. However, and this is key, weapons can upgrade. So if you use the Sonic Eruptor, which is good but not great, you can be awarded with a way better version, which puts sticky bombs on your opponent, which are really hard to flee from. The upgraded Pyroblaster adds more fire damage, Mr. Zircon will explode every now and then for big damage, the Cryo Shot will now send 4 ice shards from a frozen enemy for more damage in a certain area, and the heavy weapons gain more damage and get bigger area of effect. Now, when to use which strategy? That's entirely up to you. Are you a defensive type? Well, then you can make sure to spend the entire recon phase just taking over hostile nodes, so they cannot gain node advantage or, even worse, total domination. You can use that money to keep upgrading yourself, buy turrets and barricades. But what to buy? Well, that depends entirely on what kind of attacker your opponent is. If he is a small attacker and sends small Grungoids and melee brawlers, you are the best to invest more into the expensive electro barricades. But if they save their money and plan a bigger attack with tanks, you are way better off with, let's say, a Groovitron mine or pyro turrets. That is if you plan to do the damage attack. You can also try to do the freeze attack by getting all different kinds of cryo turrets, thereby slowing the tank down and at some point totally freezing it. However, Warmonger turrets are also really great, but that is an upgrade that you have to invest into first. It costs 2500 bolts to even gain the build option, and after that they certainly are not cheap. And you don't want your entire base to be full of Warmonger turrets and have your opponent make one push and break them all. Because what if your opponent attacks your base not to defeat your generators, but weaken and try to break your defenses entirely? All your bolts wasted, except when you have node advantage, because then you will get them back over time. There are also wrecking drones, and they are totally devastating, because if they die, they explode. This potentially insta-kills one of your generators, all of your defenses in range, and the player character, friendly or hostile. But you can also use this to your advantage, because tanks are slow, and if a wrecking drone is behind that tank and you kill that, the tank actually gains a lot of damage from the blast. If you are the more attacking type, there are also so many things to do. Are you the one to go for all the neutral nodes as fast as possible? Or are you the one rushing to node 1 and gain the heavy weapon early? Or are you going to put pressure on your opponent by taking his nodes, that are probably way further away and more heavily guarded? It's a little more time investment, but then your opponent will not gain any more bolts from that node that is now yours. And maybe you will even force them into a 1v1 battle, when they are not ready. You take some of their bolts and use that extra time to possibly take over extra nodes, or even weaken defenses of nodes. During the squad phase you actually have to decide what kind of attacker you are going to be. Will you send small groups and join the fight yourself? Or will you send a couple of tanks to keep your opponent busy, potentially wasting their panic button, and during this time you can attack as well? Or you can ignore the fight altogether and prepare for the next recon phase by weakening hostile nodes, so when the recon phase actually starts, you can immediately take them over. Or are you going to spend money to upgrade all of your troops? That really is beneficial in the long run, but not beneficial in the short run. If you figure this is going to be a tight match, maybe you're better off by investing in elite tanks, which upgrade their armor a lot. There is so much to do, so much to consider. This game, it's great, man. But it also lacks. There are only 5 maps, and those 8 weapons I mentioned previously, that is all you get. And I get it, the player base was never big and investing into this game would not be so beneficial for Insomniac, but that is so unfortunate. If you like tower defense, strategy and prefer high-paced gameplay, Qforce is something for you, man. I remember the days when Qforce got updates. It happened twice. The game launched with 3 multiplayer maps and 2 were added later. First it was Qforce, which was a really good addition. I remember that my cousin gave me a guided tour through the map because he got home from school earlier that day and I was totally shocked that there were health boxes outside of the base. That would totally change up encounters in the middle area at nodes 6 and 7. It was a real try-hard map. Months later, Torrent 4 was added as the last map. And this map was so much more convoluted. It was really way more complex than any other map in the game, and strategies have to be adjusted accordingly. There is so much more to say about this game that I currently have. But you cannot relive the prime time, you really had to be there. The maps were different from one another. The basics are that every map has 7 nodes, but how you approach the map is really different from map to map. The Gorgon refinery has tight spaces and more close combat, while the hidden city of Balkai has a lot more open spaces. Torrent 4 and Qforce toy around with more verticality, and the Grumblenet Plasma Harvester is like a mix of these, with more pits to fall in, but also more bolt boxes to find on the map. But if I'm praising this game so heavily, why was no one ever around? Why did it fail? Well, the game didn't sell well because the name Ratchet and Clank was tied to it. People have come to expect the basic third-person shooter, single-player story games that the Ratchet and Clank games were. Maybe this game was doomed from the start because with a name tied to Ratchet and Clank, people had different expectations. This game was almost entirely multiplayer focused, which Ratchet and Clank games were not a fan of. But if this was something new entirely, this game would have probably flown so hard under the radar and I would have never even considered to buy it. Now, I also thought that maybe this had to be a standalone anthology part. Let's say they've called it Captain Quark Qforce. I think that could have worked, but alas. This game shifted to tower defense shenanigans, which most players were not a fan of and didn't even give the game a chance. Even the tower defense mechanics in the campaign were kinda meh. You'd usually explore the map, only to have you teleport back to the base to defeat some random small attack, and then you have to continue. There were also a lot of people which found the gameplay to be frustrating. And I do get that. The movement can kind of feel like slow responsive. Hyperstrikes take time, and the camera can sometimes really not be your friend. There was also not a lot of content, and especially the players on the PS Vita had it rough. The game basically wasn't playable there. I mean, technically it was, but not as a good 1v1 game since the game suffered from frame drops, bad textures, long load times and inconsistent glitches. I believe the fanbase even got a compensation for that, which I rarely see in modern gaming. Now what Ratchet and Clank Qforce does have is a ranking system, which is good. I always support games that show the player how well they are performing instead of, well, let's say modern COD for example, which adds a skill rank to everyone, but never actually tells you, so they can SBMM the shit out of you. However, in Qforce, this was actually a big problem. In the early days, if you encountered someone who was actually Lombax, they had real big status. After a while, everyone was lolbags. And people didn't want their rank to go down after losing. So what they do is shut off their PlayStation when they lost, or when they're about to lose, so their rank wouldn't drop. That's so stupid, man. You'd be all happy since you finally got the upper hand on your opponent, and then you see they've backed out of the game. I also get that this game wasn't for everybody. It happens a lot that you are actually getting stomped on, and you sit there being miserable, knowing that there is nothing you can do to turn the tide. Of course, this game is about preventing this very situation, but it does happen like it did with the 2 random people that showed up, like I mentioned earlier. So fair enough, this game wasn't popular, but I was really good. I tried to become top 100 of the world and I just missed that. Ended up on 102nd, which I'm still really damn proud of. Nowadays, basically no one is playing this game anymore. I did play the single player ranch only about 2 years ago, and unfortunately an hour of important footage got corrupted, so I never ended up making a video about that. But outside of that, the game is basically unplayable, unless you can find friends that will join you. It's unfortunate, but people shifted to different games over time, or never even gave it a chance. Now, if there are a lot of viewers that actually do or enjoy this game, please let me know in the comments. If there happen to be a lot of you, maybe we can pick a night where we're going to play some Qforce together. Could be fun to relive the old days, play some 1v1s and maybe even 2v2 FFA. If I were to do something like that, I will update you in a community post, so be sure to subscribe to follow that. Also be sure to leave some of your good Qforce stories in the comments. I really do look out for those precious memories. This has been yet another obscure video game story, so until next time, I'd say, take care.